Welcome to Into the Cypher State, everyone, the premier public broadcast of Galactica Network. My handle is Citizen42.Gala within the Cypher State. You can call me Dave. Today I'm joined by my regular co-host Cosmos Hoss and some very special guests, including some team members. Now, before we start, it is very important to remember that both myself, Cosmos Hoss, and any team members up here, and any guests, we are guides to navigating the Cypher State, but we are not your financial advisors. Any guest opinions are their own. So nothing said on this space constitutes financial or investment advice. And now that we have that out of the way, let's go around the table and introduce ourselves. So we have a wonderful special guest on today, Citizen Cosmos. It's really nice to have you up, my friends. Please, if you could just introduce yourself to everyone, that'd be great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Serge. I am the co-founder of the Citizen Cosmos project. I am also the host of the Citizen Cosmos podcast. We are a project that labels ourselves as ecosystem developer with a mission to bridge the layer zero, the communities between all blockchains, and doing so, we are a validator across several networks, and we also produce content, which is educational Web3 content. So that's pretty much it, us in a nutshell.
That's awesome, man. We've actually been on Citizen Cosmos's podcast before. Absolutely fantastic content, and we're very glad to have you up, my friend. We also have on deck Cosmos Hoss, my regular co-host and resident madman. Please, mate, if you could just give yourself a introduction, mate.
Yeah, so my name's Cosmos Hoss. I'm basically a crypto maxi, but more specifically, Cosmos. I've been in this ecosystem essentially since Osmosis launched, and I love everything about it. The communitarian approach, the tech, like just the futuristic possibilities, and and then not only like the communitarian part, but like Citizen here, like he does podcasts and content, and I feel a lot of people in our ecosystem really give back, and the fact that I'm even here doing this and like how I've grown my page and just my community. I didn't even do it intentionally, but it's just a sign and testament of like how strong this ecosystem really is. And like basically every day I just give back to this community and try to learn, grow, and help others out. And I think there's a lot of like-minded people in this ecosystem, so that's why I'm here, and I'm honored to always be on these conversations and get to meet new people. So that's me. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, I have no doubt about your integrity, man. Seriously, if you've ever been into any space with Cosmos Hoss, ever heard him speak, you know he's a passionate dude. He knows he has the very best intentions for the blockchain and the space. Our last speaker at the moment, until we get our co-founder up, we also have AStar.Gala. AStar is our technical lead on Galactica Net. So please, Frederick, please, if you just give yourself an introduction.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Frederick. On Discord and Twitter, you can find me as AStar. My background is in computer science, and I'm now happy to be part of the Galactica development team. So my interest includes smart contracts, zero knowledge proofs, and integrating all of these components to get a nice application. And what I'm specifically working on Galactica is, for example, our zero knowledge certificates you can use to prove statements about your personal data while still keeping privacy. I'm working on the wallet integration and also a lot of other integration tasks between front end and back end and smart contracts and so on. I'm happy to be here.
We're always happy to have you up, Frederick. It's absolutely amazing to have you, your technical expertise on this panel. We're normally very more like a fundamental kind of guys, and having the technical side is really valuable. Okay, guys, well, awesome. So get comfortable, everyone. And if anyone listening wants to speak, just please raise your hand. Don't worry if it takes a moment for us to bring you up. We just like to do a quick bot check to make sure we don't get any shenanigans, as it were. If you do decide to join us on the panel, make sure that you raise your hand before speaking, or you will be muted. Sorry, we just got a lot to say, and most of the community conversation will be further towards the end. Our guest speakers and team members can, of course, speak at will. But yeah, if you do have something to say, or you just really do think your point intermingles with the topics being spoken about, then just request to speak and we'll accommodate that. So make sure you check the tweet pinned at the top of the space. So just so you can get started with our Cypher State campaign, this is definitely your best shot at earning your Galactica Network citizenship early. So simply join our Discord, link your account to our Zeely campaign, and start earning rewards for your contributions. It's very simple, and it's a very early campaign for you right now. All right, everyone, I think we should just get on with the space. So I'll just give you a quick reminder. Please just jump down to the comments on this space, give us a retweet, give us a like, and if you have any comments, then please just give us any questions you want in the comments if you don't want to come up and speak. Okay, so we're actually going to be discussing a relatively focused and more nuanced topic today with our speakers. So just to ensure that our listeners remain informed of the latest developments in Web3, we're going to start the show today with a quick rundown of the latest news. We'll also see if anyone wants to has an opinion on this news. Okay, so this is your news. Following the announcement of a lawsuit brought by the Securities and Exchange Commission last week, the market depth across the top 25 assets listed on US-based crypto exchange Binance US has reduced by nearly 80%. So market makers such as Wintermute and KeyRock are retreating from the beleaguered exchange in the face of an increasingly hostile regulatory environment. Binance US signaled last week that it intends to at least temporarily transition towards being a crypto-only service. So we don't know if we'll ask the question later, but I'm not sure if crypto in the US is dying a slow death. The UK's biggest taxpayer, Alex Gurko, founder and co-CEO of traditional market maker XTX, has called out the country's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for publicly supporting the opening of a new London-based office for A16Z, one of the largest crypto-focused venture capital firms in the world. Mr. Sunak called the decision by A16Z a huge vote of confidence in the UK as a place to build and grow tech businesses in the UK. Mr. Gurko later tweeted that throwing the government support behind an industry that is 99 to 100% fraud or bullshit is both absolutely mad. Yesterday, Monday 12th, United States Representative Warren Davidson introduced the SEC Stabilization Act into the House of Representatives. Among other provisions designed to balance the embattled regulator, the bill specifies the removal of its current chairman, Gary Gensler. In a statement, Mr. Davidson said, US capital markets must be protected from a tyrannical chairman, including the current one. That's why I'm introducing legislation to fix the ongoing abuse of power and to ensure protections that are in the very best interests of the market for the years to come. It's time for real reform and to fire Gary Gensler as chair of the SEC. And that, everyone, was your Web3 news update. I hope you enjoyed that. So to our panel, did you have any questions or opinions on today's news topics before we move on to the main topic of today's show? Perhaps Hoss, I'm sure you have something.
No, I'm a big fan of. I didn't look at all the wording for the Stabilization Act, but I guess the TLDR is just that it's mainly Republican led, but they're just they had enough of what's going on with just enforcement by, action. There's no set timeline or guidelines. It's just whatever, I guess, Gary Gensler and his cronies feel like doing that day. They just approach it and just do whatever they want. So it's not really legal, and it's not really the way that American policies are intact. It's more just like how you said in the segment there, and we'll see if it passes, but that would be kind of a good start to clearing out the swamp or whatever you want to call it. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like there's also a couple of other provisions, as I kind of alluded to there, that mostly about kind of balancing the amount of the partisanship of the panel. Sorry, I think Citizen Cosmos, you actually unmuted there. If you want to say something, please.
I was, I'm going to start with my little devil's advocate hat, and I just want to say to all your listeners, whoever is in this space today, that just like whenever you listen to a space and you shouldn't accept what the speakers and rightfully so pointed by Galactica there, it's only an opinion and not a guidance to somewhere. I think that for me, it's important to share, at least I'm going to speak from a personal perspective here, that any news, the white noise that the politician world makes, whatever it is, it's only noise for decentralization, and you shouldn't treat it as anything else. And then shouldn't really accept it as something that could be potentially in a way of building decentralization. So if I was just a regular user, I wouldn't really, or especially if I was building something, actually, I probably wouldn't be paying attention to that and just doing my thing and building decentralization. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, that's a completely understandable take. The only counterpoint I could even make is that we're not quite at the point where decentralized systems are completely unlinked from the traditional legacy systems. So it's just something that we need to pay attention to. That's all. But yeah, otherwise, absolutely, completely valid point. So yeah, any other comments on the news before we start? We also had, as I say, the UK's biggest taxpayer. He was basically calling out Rishi Sunak and calling most of the crypto industry fraud or completely useless. While I don't think that's a particularly useful take from Mr. Gurko, but the fact that Mr. Sunak actually said that it's a vote of confidence for the UK and that they're embracing this has got to be a good sign, I guess.
Do you know anything about that individual? Like what his background is?
Mr. Sunak or this guy who's trashing crypto?
The guy that's trashing crypto. Because it's like whenever someone has a hot take like that, it's like you can just look at it. They have some sort of banking ties or some sort of ties to feel that way. You know what I mean? So that's why I was wondering. I don't know too much about the person. So.
And he's I think he's originally Russian, and he's like a head of a really large market maker in the UK, like a traditional market maker. That's all I already know. And of course, he holds this title as the UK's biggest taxpayer, which is interesting.
I think it's an interesting story, but in my opinion, personally, I'm there on Sergio's side, also that I'm not taking too much attention on such opinions, but I think it's definitely interesting that crypto is now so important that it's talked about on these levels. So I think that's quite nice. And yeah, judging how much of crypto is actually fraud or not, I think it's quite hard because a lot of the fraud comes to the news and then also is visible to people outside of crypto. But I think personally for me, the more interesting part is all the nice technology that is emerging and that's harder visible to the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I think the primary thing that I'm taking from this is that the UK is being a bit more friendly towards crypto than most other countries, and I can only take good things from that. Okay, guys. So I guess what we'll do is we'll just move on to the primary topic of the space. Before I do that, I would just like to remind everyone listening that you are welcome to request to speak if you wish, if you find anything interesting you want to talk about. I'd also please ask if you could just give a like and retweet on this particular space. It really helps with the algorithm. It also helps with getting the replays out to people after the recording's gone out. So thank you for that. So we'll move on to the headline topic, which is bringing the concept of reputation on chain. Now, there's an awful lot to this. So I guess what I'll do is I'll just ask a couple of questions, really, to be honest, for the panel. So my first question for the panel is pretty simple. Is pseudonymous finance enough? Or does blockchain participants need more of like a greater sense of identity and a bit more and have their selves represented on chain in a more real way? Let's go with well, I think we'll start with Frederick first, because obviously he's on.
Sure.
Have an opinion on this.
So I think it's a quite complex topic because first you talked about pseudonymous blockchains, and I would, for example, like to raise the question how good the pseudonymous nature of the blockchain actually is anonymizing people or not, because at the moment you cannot directly see who's behind an address, but assuming that the kind of activity on the blockchain grows and you do more and more transactions there, it's probably quite traceable. And therefore, I think it's quite cool that there are solutions emerging that are additionally to the anonymous nature of the accounts, also adding some privacy. So this is like where the zero knowledge proof part comes in. And the really cool thing that we are at Galactica are working on is that we actually want to leverage zero knowledge in a way that you can put more of your personal data on chain to actually utilize it in some way. So a very simple example would be that you can put data about your KYC, that someone verified you to be a real human on chain, and then use it, for example, to in a DAO prove that you're a real human who has not voted yet. So you can switch to a one token, one vote system to a one human, one vote system, or something like this. And therefore I think it's quite nice to have more on chain than just your pseudonymous account. And I think if we extend it from there, adding more data and also somehow computing this data into something like reputation score for how much you contributed to an ecosystem, for example. This can also be quite a nice thing to then use in, for example, a voting power function or other more social use cases which are not present at the moment on blockchains.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I would tend to agree. There's a lot of use cases, but perhaps Sergey, you're from what we just discussed on our previous podcast together. You just kind of describe yourself as a bit of a techno-anarchist, right?
A lot.
Yeah, exactly right. So, what do you think about like I say, it's the same question, but it's just like pseudonymous finance. Would you prefer to just stay pseudonymous and have this system in which everything is open, everything can be seen on chain, but you are as unknowable as you can be? Or would you even accept something like a digital identity in that kind of system?
This is a very, very complex question. I'm not even sure I'm ready for my own answer. And I had one answer when you asked the question, but then as I was listening to AStar, my answer changed slightly, I think. So thank you, AStar, for directing my thoughts. I'm not sure if this is the answer is going to fit into the scope of understanding what position I'm coming from, because it's going to be like a 2-3 minute answer. I'm sorry, I still didn't start it. But so I'm going to try and make the point. And as crazy as it sounds, this is my personal opinion. I think that the point of creating trustless communication instruments is I'm referring to blockchains, of course, and to consensus computing is, a step ahead, us as a society, as not even as a society, but as an entity, I would say, towards, communications that are clearer, maybe one day even P2P communication, direct P2P communication, right? Without even a decentralized man in the middle. But I think that, and I know this doesn't make sense in a second, I will put it all together. I think the fact that we are arguing today that such things as bots are bad, or such things as an account, has to be counted, has to be tied to a user, could be, and this is me jumping very much far in the future, one day counted as somebody judging somebody on their skin color or their religion or their race. I don't think that in a digital realm, in a complete digital realm, and like I said, like you mentioned, and I concurred, I am a bit of a hardcore techno anarchist. And techno, the music can also be there, so let's stick with techno. I think that in that far, far away, distant universe where we all live as one entity, I think that it doesn't matter. Today, the problem that when people talk about assign an identity to an account, they usually refer to KYC. Now, I don't think that that's the case. I think that an account should be seen as an account, and their actions are, could theoretically belong to the same owner, but then could have different identities. Because for the digital realm, that entity is the entity and not the owner behind it. It's like a question of, can a robot theoretically, like an octopus, can think for much more than one being? I don't know if everybody's aware. But what's the scientific name? Sorry, I forgot. They're able to have more than one reason inside, up to 8 actually. And I'm pretty sure that complex AI one day will be able to have a lot more than that, like 8 full entities inside them. And if that AI owns all those 8 accounts with each account tied to a different entity, then I know that it's kind of like going a little bit of a side, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't mind that an account will have an identity. But for example, there are projects out there, crazy projects, of course, but they're cool in the way that what they experiment in, they're giving like you like a moon citizenship or like you guys are also planning with citizenships, and that kind of sounds crazy, but I don't think that those things should be tied to an identity of a person, because if we go back to why we created the cyberspace and everything, I think that kind of goes against that principle.
That's an absolutely incredible take, and this is exactly why we wanted you on, Sergey, because you have fantastic insights, really do. So I found that absolutely fascinating, especially the kind of forms of digital discrimination you're kind of alluding to there. It's very interesting as a subject. So I'll say the kind of way that Galactica Network is dealing with this right now is that yes, you do have an option to KYC. So it's a decentralized KYC, and it's private through zero knowledge, but it is a KYC. So there's no getting away from that. What that does is it kind of it bootstraps our initial Sybil resistance, and it gives users an option to basically transact using DeFi in a compliant manner. So that option is there, but the actual primary the fundamentals of our chain, obviously, it's a permissionless chain. And you can use it without any of the citizenship or any of that, and the fundamentals remain intact. And that is that you are essentially, when you've used the Galactica Network, you become a persistent identity, which is informed by your Web3 footprint, which is basically your reputation. So it's informed by your transaction history, by the soulbound tokens, or ZK certificates as we call them on chain. So your entire history on chain becomes this persistent identity with no name, with no identity as of its own, but a persistent identity that is reputable and has a history that is unique. So this not only obviously has massive implications for Sybil resistance, but it also it kind of is that option that you're talking about of having identity on chain without having it linked to your Web2 self, I suppose.
Yeah, precisely. To yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So Hoss, I guess same question. Do you think pseudonymous finance is enough, or do you think that we need this? Do you think we need reputation?
So yeah, I have the mixed feelings. Like for those that get more context, like my background's in accounting and finance, and I've been doing that for a very long time. I feel like an old man in this space. And realistically, like the people that are in this space that are seasoned and experienced, maybe you're like, I don't really care about what people say I can do and can't do. But in order for like mass adoption and for, you know, institutional money and everything else to get in this space where this is more of just like another segment of the investment sector, like KYC is obviously going to be required. And that doesn't mean, hey, like this account is this person, like where it's all for the entire public to see it. It's more of the fact that basically, what was I going to say? Sorry, I was doing something when you asked me that question. But no, it's basically like there will be identities on chain where you not like just a random person can like, oh, that's so and so. Let me just like stalk his wallet and find out all the transactions. And not only that, like for protocols and DeFi applications to bring in traditional finance, like a protocol or an app or whatever, a DApp needs to be KYC compliant for those that participate in. Like, and people that have management or money under management, they're not going to just do DeFi and not have any sort of transparency for them to see. Although, like most, you know, like I got into this space because, you know, realistically, I say this almost every space. If not, I think that a blockchain, all it is a decentralized accounting ledger, and then you like build really cool things on top of it. So to answer your question, I've been rambling around in a circle, probably not making sense. Like it is going to be required. And it's the only way to like really move the space forward. And there just needs to be a good blend of privacy and transparency, you know. And I've got into this space because of the accounting side, but also the privacy aspect of it. Because like right now, how everything's constructed, it's not really scalable. Like someone could just have like a Bored Ape or some sort of NFT that's worth a lot, and then you can kind of like find out who that is, and then it's really a security measurement posture. It's like, hey, this person's so and so, and then they can like stalk you and bother you. So we need to find a way to keep remaining private but also compliant for any future, you know, laws and things like that. So I hope that made sense. I'm rambling around trying to multitask right now, so sorry about that.
Don't even worry about it, Horst. I completely understand. So yeah, I think I can actually simplify that question. But first, what I'll just do is, if I can just remind everyone who's listening, we have lots of listeners today. I'd really appreciate it if you could jump down into the comments, give us a like, give us a retweet on the space. It really helps us out and get the space out to more people, educate more people. That's what we're all about here, all about the education. So yeah, I guess if you simplify that question down, and after both of your answers, do you think that we can remain entirely separated from? I don't think personally. I don't think we can. But do you think we can remain separated from like real life, as it were, with decentralized with our decentralized identities? I don't think it's really possible to have like a completely, I suppose, anarchistic, as you might put it, Sergey, like a solution here. I think we kind of have to be able to integrate with Web2 somehow, and with the institutions and everyone, all the major players that we have in the world right now.
I think that. Sorry to go first. It's just I heard my name, so I felt obliged. Well, there is a couple of steps to the answer. One, I don't think that true decentralization can mean that everybody has to comply with one line of thinking, such as a decentralized line of thinking. So whenever, like, you know, big decentralized guys and like anarchists shout, let's ruin all the banks, that kind of doesn't make sense. Because, like, well, if a person freely chooses, or not freely, because if they choose it not freely, maybe they, at the end of the day, choosing not freely to live somewhere that doesn't allow them that freedom. Well, arguable, right? But we're talking like making many assumptions here into one statement. So let's just kind of like skip the assumptions for the sake of the answer. To make it short, so I think like that's the first step. So that already removes the necessity to make everything like that. You know, I think it should be like the ones that want to use it should be like let's say if there is a free market, and by free market I'm kind of making a synonym with the word community here. If a free market decides that that's the way they want to transact between themselves, and by transactions I mean everything including communication between humans, and non-humans included, and whatever, plants, animals, whatever, any give and take of electronical impulse. So, and if that's the way centralized, then it can be centralized and doesn't even have to have Web3 at all. But and the second step to that answer, in terms of like from the other side, from the side of, oh, I hope that will happen. Well, I don't know. That's I think theoretically it can, because I mean, well, we have seen examples of artificial intelligence already, like, you know, general, like really clever artificial intelligence already exists. So what's going to happen with the future, and you know, where will be the? I mean, I'm gonna make it short. So I'm gonna cut the bullshit here and answer shortly. You know, when you said digital footprint, I would say digital soul. What is the difference between a soul and the foot and all the information that is processed in the storage by the computation passed with the bandwidth? That's how we work. That's what we refer to the soul as. So the first part of the answer, it doesn't have to be like that, but the second part of the answer, for those who want it like that, maybe I think it's possible for it to happen one day.
It's completely fair. Yeah. So like freedom for all, and the ability to represent a soul on chain without having the need to identify oneself, I suppose. And yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense in my mind, as long as I've interpreted that correctly. So yeah, I guess I think it's pretty it's a good idea for me to just state this, I guess. So most people listening right now will probably know that blockchain tech represents the most sophisticated, transparent, and inclusive financial rails the world has pretty much ever seen. Our industry has evolved enormously over just a decade, or just slightly over a decade, that we've been truly active in this kind of realm. And we're now currently like becoming a viable challenge to the world's like legacy financial systems. So the obvious path forward, I think, is blockchain for global transfers of financial capital. So I think that Web3 is kind of currently suffering, I think, for its massive number of scams and hacks and governance failures as well, that kind of plague the industry. So I think some of the people listening right now might have even fallen victim to some of the issues I've just spoken about in one way or another. And frankly, they all kind of boil down to a central issue, and that is, well, maybe two central issues, I'm not sure, but a lack of Sybil resistance for a start, and a near total absence of this social, like these social primitives that we've been talking about on identity on chain. So I think like the current like premise of Galactica Network and the current like thesis that we're working on is that, you know, by at least with enough users voluntarily going for the citizenship route to support the Sybil resistance of those who don't, we can basically model these kind of like social primitives and gain some semblance of society on chain, in which we can all kind of be who we want to be and be as private as we want to be through through wonderful, very impressive zero-knowledge cryptography that's come along in recent years and has really matured very quickly. And yeah, I think it's, personally, I think that's the best way, is that we kind of have this a hybrid approach in which everyone can be who they want to be. Yeah, I think one thing that we'll probably just move on to quickly, I think, is a more Cosmos kind of focused couple of questions and opinions, because obviously we have both Cosmos hosts and Citizen Cosmos on. It just makes a bit of sense, I suppose. So we're actually building out our reputation framework. We're actually building out the entire blockchain using the Cosmos SDK. And I'm just wondering, perhaps Frederick, could you just give maybe a quick rundown of how we're implementing that using on Cosmos, and why we maybe decided to use Cosmos for that reputation framework, and anything else pertinent you think you need to say?
Yeah, sure. So maybe it's a short primer. Galactica Network is a layer 1 blockchain that is developed using the Cosmos SDK. So we choose the Cosmos SDK for a couple reasons. And to answer your question, I think it's more or less answering why we chose Cosmos. Because on the one hand, the Cosmos SDK gives really nice tools and really nice framework for developers to build a blockchain. On the one hand, they have this nice set of pre-existing modules that gives you the basic security. So, for example, the consensus algorithm, the modules for handling tokens, modules for interchain connections, and so on. And on the other hand, you can provide a simple way how developers can add their custom features and then combine it with existing ones in a good framework. So me as a software developer, I'm really grateful for such systems. And yeah, that's a big reason why we chose it. And another big reason is that in the Cosmos ecosystem, and especially through the IBC connection between Cosmos chains, there's a lot of potential for synergies. So features on Galacticas, like having zero knowledge KYC, you can use to prove that you are human. Can be this information can be transferred to other IBC chains and then utilized there with the features that other chain has. And I think this provides a lot of potential that also unlocks use cases that we might even not see at the moment, because maybe someone else later figures out the connection of what can be built on top of the different possibilities that are in the Cosmos ecosystem. And the last reason I currently have in my head why we chose Cosmos is that there are also nice modules for providing the EVM, so the Ethereum virtual machine, on the Cosmos SDK, so that we can also leverage a lot of smart contract features that play out really nicely on Ethereum, and then utilize them also to implement a lot of our logic. So how, for example, zero knowledge proofs are validated in a decentralized way, and how our reputation function works is also part of this ecosystem. And so speaking about the reputation on Galactica, it's one of the more complex parts of the network, because there's a lot of aspects involved that need to be thought out, where we need to find a sweet spot. And this includes how expressive reputation is. So we, for example, want to have multiple kinds of reputation functions, that you can have a reputation about your contribution to the governance of the network. You should have a reputation about how active you were on certain protocols, and maybe we talked about SEC in the news. Maybe at some point when there's regulation, you might want to have a reputation that someone is an accredited investor or not, that he can invest in tokens that were classified as securities. Or if I go to the extreme, maybe it's even something like a creditworthiness reputation, where we check how a person, or where a person can provide a zero knowledge proof about their previous history of taking loans and paying them back. And if there is a good history that convinces the investor that he will pay back his loan, maybe there can be better collateral rates or something like this. And to cover all of these use cases, we want to have our reputation framework quite expressive, meaning that you can define different functions on what computation you actually want to compute. Then there is the dimension of the base data. So what data do you feed into this reputation function to get interesting results out? So there we want to take as much as data in, but on the other hand, we also have to find a sweet spot with the computation time it needs and the kind of centralization high computation cost would maybe lead to. And therefore, we're trying to find a sweet spot here. And in the Cosmos ecosystem, we have a nice way that we can put some part of this computation into the blockchain node. So developing in the Go Cosmos SDK, and another part which should be really easy accessible to everyone is then in the EVM smart contract. So I just wanted to give this as a rough overview of what we are thinking about, part of the strategy, how we implement it, and but I guess it's not conclusive enough because there's a lot of aspects that I have not mentioned yet. So I also encourage you, if you're interested, to look on the Galactica website or look into the documentation or answer questions here. Sorry, ask questions, not answer questions. I hope I can answer the questions.
That was absolutely amazing, Frederick. This is Frederick explains it so eloquently still, but it's just we keep on coming to this problem where we're trying to describe Galactica Network scope, and we end up in a situation where it's just very difficult to come up with a concise way of just putting it forward. It's so difficult. But yeah, it's one of these things where we're trying to the Cosmos the Cosmos ecosystem just seemed like a really good choice. So before I actually get on to the next the next kind of question that I want to ask everyone, I'd just like to just reset a little bit. Can we actually get if everyone in the space right now could just check out the pinned tweet? There's a new one at the top there. Essentially, it's just based on the Cypher State campaign that we're running currently. All you need to do is just join our Discord. From there, you can pretty much figure it out. There's a link to the Zealy quest board at the very top. There's a link. There's an entire section devoted to the Cypher State where you can learn exactly how to use it. So all you need to do is join the Discord. I'd really appreciate that. Basically, you will by basically going through this Cypher State campaign, which is essentially just like doing a few quests through the Zealy quest board and linking your Discord. You will have the opportunity to earn everything from Discord perks at the very low end to participation NFTs for various events we have coming up, which may be valuable later. We don't know. No financial advice there. And all the way up to the most valuable item you can get in our ecosystem, which is the Galactica Network citizenship. It's a huge deal, and the fact that you can get the citizenship passports this early is absolutely crazy, in my eyes anyway. So yeah, if you want to click on that pinned tweet, just check it out. Would be really appreciative, and I think it'll be worth your time to have a look and just join our Discord. Thank you very much for listening to my little show there. I appreciate it. So the next kind of question, I guess, I wanted to ask then, perhaps for Sergey again. Do you know of any protocols in the Cosmos ecosystem that might benefit from a more socially enhanced kind of base layer like Galactica Network? Something that might be financial in nature that might benefit from having people on chain?
I think all of them. No, like seriously, no, like joking aside, I understand what you're asking. But in my opinion, a reputation system can actually be used as a valuation system, like especially if it's verifiable on chain. Then technically any protocol, a lot of social networks, for example, Desmos. Then you have Cyber, which is in a lot identical to partially what you're doing. Of course, you guys have different goals, and to be honest, you are doing a very similar thing. So for sure, I think maybe from different angles, but for sure you have probably a lot of room for intercommunication, and they probably could use your systems as much as you could theirs. But then, of course, like I said, Desmos already for sure, because it's a social network, and that seems like one-to-one to them. Then there was, well, you kind of put me on the spot. I guess any DEX theoretically could use it, because I guess any DEX could use reputational system. So we're talking about what we have, about 10, I guess, no, more, because if you take in like Astroport, Terra, and all of the other ones. And well, the funny thing is with Cosmos is, I mean, AStar gave a absolutely perfect description, like overview, sorry, of the some of the abilities and most of the abilities of Cosmos there. But of course, IBC kind of like allows you to, to wrap it in theoretically anything you want. I mean, in terms of the reputation as a product, right? And then to exchange it with any other network for anything that that network might want that to be exchanged for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize for putting you on the spot. I just
No. I was joking.
So I guess same question kind of to Hoss. What do you think of the Cosmos ecosystem? Where do you kind of think Galactica fits in?
So, I mean, when I first, just to kind of give some context, like when I first got into crypto, I did what most people probably do. They watch like YouTube and they're like, oh, let's see what's going on with crypto. You find Ethereum, Bitcoin, a couple others. But then as you like actually participate in it, if you're, really active, it's really clunky to go from like one different blockchain to another, especially back then, a few years ago. And I kept asking myself, like, would anyone really understand how to use any of this stuff, right? And I kept saying no. And I'm like, all right, we're so far away, but there has to be something that's better than like these alternatives right now. And then lo and behold, like Osmosis launched in June of was it 21, 22? I'm just so out of it right now. But they launched, and then that kind of got me over to Cosmos, and that's how I found IBC. And then me putting all the time and effort into like understanding like how the technology works and everything else, it really fascinated me. So I'm like, all right, this makes sense. Like I'm sending from one chain to another. Like it happened really effortlessly, and it was quick. And I know when I first used Osmosis for the first time, I was so used to like Uniswap and all that, and it was just a way better experience. Like I always say about customer experience, and the experience was so much better. So that sold me right there. And then I really went down the rabbit hole, did all the research on like how the tech works and how it makes sense, and like futuristic possibilities. Like if a traditional company was going to spin up their own blockchain, like they're going to use the Cosmos SDK. It's like a perfect blueprint for what they want to do, and it gives them customizability. Like what I really like about Cosmos is it's like modular. It's like having a vehicle, right? Like if one part messes up, like your whole car, your whole vehicle is not broke. Like all you have to do is like fix it. And like to kind of tie that into like all these different blockchains are on Cosmos. Like think of it as maybe like a galaxy of planets. And like right now we're so early, there's asteroids out there. Like the asteroid hit Terra, and like Luna and UST kind of crashed. And yes, it negatively affected our solar system, but afterwards, like we rebound and we learned from what happened and made better products and learned from that situation. But on other chains, they're like monolithic, so it's like this one big plan, and every single resource is tied up to it. And if anything happens, like you're just like really messed up. Like if you have all your eggs in one basket, you're just really beat as an investor, as a developer, as someone that builds it. But in Cosmos, we're kind of like we build all these like planets that are specifically for your use case, but at the same notion, like you're able to like freely go to one other planet, and you're like a citizen of all these planets, and everyone speaks the same language too. So it always fascinated me, right? It's like like beforehand, it was like if you're Ethereum, you spoke a language, and if you're on Solana, you spoke a language. But like you always needed a translator. Like no one knew what the hell one another was saying. And like I always like to tie that back into like humanity. Imagine if all humanity spoke the same language since like day one. We would be so further along. Like hell, like crypto might have happened 50 years ago or whatever. And then like to tie what you guys are doing, you're building tools for everything. You know, like reputational on chain. So someone like myself and Citizen and others that are really active or participating on all these different blockchains, like he was saying, rattling off all these DeFi protocols. Imagine them being able to see like, okay, this address like literally has done so many things on all these different protocols, including providing liquidity. Like a lot of the things people get really mad about, doing impermanent loss, impermanent loss. Well, DeFi couldn't exist if someone actually did, you know, if people didn't want to decide to like put up their liquidity for you to do that. You'd always have to run things through a centralized exchange and all that. So like someone that's willing to like participate and be a part of it should get more reputation. And you know, like we can see things in the future with like loans and being under collateralized because it's like this person's real reputable, they've been doing so much, they've been in this ecosystem for years now. And then like governance, maybe instead of it being like the one for one, okay, well you own X amount of funds, like you get this much voting. And there's a lot of people that invest in this space, but like they don't do anything for the space except for, you know, park their cash or try to invest in it. They're not active. Hell, they probably don't even vote on half the things. So why should they have more reputation than someone that's like voting on everything, that's participating? And I think that's more futuristic, to live in this like synchronized world that we all envision, and to like make new tools, because it's a fact. Like if you look around for any use case, like if you want to use America, we're supposed to be so advanced, and you go to like vote for like a politician, it's like, what are we in 1950? And it's real antiquated. So like these tools and crypto is more than just like a monetary system. I firmly believe crypto can enhance and improve like every aspect and every niche of like the world. And like that's why I keep my focus on it, and I'm not really worried about the short-term consequences and the market going up and down, because I do firmly believe, you know, in a decade from now, like all this stuff that we're doing is going to be like it's going to be an afterthought. So that's my long answer there.
Man, I always repeat, I appreciate your answers, long or short. Awesome, really, I do. I really loved your analogy there of the planets and the cosmos being like this kind of solar system of planets, all acting as a contingency for everyone else. It's a really good analogy. And also, I would love if Galactica Network could one day be like this, like a united reputation bureau for all of them. And we could end up with a whole new social base layer for Cosmos and beyond, of course.
Yeah, I mean, and to like add to that, because like another point of it is like you can like think of Cosmos as like a nation state, right? Like it's like a treaty. So yeah, you have your own planet, you could do your own thing. Like you can have your own validator sets, you can have how many you want, like different little niches and little things that you do on it. But at the end of the day, you're like all in agreement. Like you kind of have each other's backs on like the security and like the linguistics and updating the codes for everyone. And it's just like really, and really, like, not to be cheesy, but it's kind of like a beautiful thing, man. And like I do think Cosmos is so much further along when it comes to interoperability. Like I love crypto. I'm a crypto maxi. Like I want everything to work, everything to succeed. But a lot of chains and things going on right now, like that's kind of like an afterthought to them, or it's like they're gonna do that by addition. But Cosmos since day one had seen that like vision, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And like one thing I've learned investing in technology for a long time now is that things take a long time, for longer than people think, but also it can be shorter than what people think. And nothing ever really surprises me in this space. But one thing it's like kind of certain, except if we do get hit by like a meteorite or something and like technology didn't exist, like technology always moves forward. Like AI is going to keep going forward. Like we always like press the envelope? Like, why do you think, like, I'm on an iPhone right now, and realistically, this iPhone is good enough to do anything, but there'll be, in 5 years from now, there's going to be like the 15th edition. You know, people keep pushing the envelope of innovation and technology, and it's just going to keep happening. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
It's well said, man. Like I say, it's definitely what you've pretty much gone over most of the reasons why we decided to build on the Cosmos SDK in the first place. I mean, it's just this modular kind of multi-chain model, and multi-chain is something we truly have at our hearts. We know that nothing that's just a singular monolithic enterprise can run everything in an overarching manner. It just doesn't work. Like, it's been tried, tested, it just doesn't work. You need to have cooperation with others. You need to have these collaborations with other protocols, and just to make things work. And Cosmos is obviously the embodiment of that. It really is. There is an interesting comment down here, which I don't quite understand. I would love if either Sergey or Hoss, maybe you could answer the question for me, because it's more of an implication than a question. Jim, he says, are there actually people that would ever trust their personal data with any validator or chain in the Cosmos ecosystem? Now, I'm not that technically aware of any reason why they wouldn't. Is there a basis for that kind of statement?
I'm not sure validators host your data. It's well, the chains usually don't host data. Usually, the data should be at least stored on the. I mean, imagine the weight of the chain if it had to store, like, let's say, I don't know, MP3 files, or you could store it in IPFS or anything. I mean, validators just sign transactions and make sure that nobody's cheating the ledger that Hoss was referring to when describing blockchain as a ledger, which it is. So that's basically all they're doing. I'm not. Maybe I'm also AStar. If you can maybe help technically.
Yeah, sure. So at least on Galactica, the idea is that you keep your data private, and you do it by not putting your personal data on chain, but instead you just put a verification hash on chain. So you go to a KYC provider, we call them guardians. They then check your documents, and they have the data. So it's basically the same as if you would open a bank account somewhere and they need your KYC. But then they just issue the hash of your personal data on chain, and it's put into a Merkle tree where it's, how do I say it simply? I would say it's hidden among a lot of other supplied personal data hashes. And then whenever you want to do anything on the blockchain that requires KYC, for example, you can create the zero knowledge proof that is verified on chain to check that your personal data included and that the statements are actually accurate, but no one sees the personal data when this proof is verified. So I think it's really cool because now you can prove to certain services that you are over 18, that you live in Germany, that you have contributed to this and that without actually sharing your personal data. So I think, in my opinion, it's much more secure and private because I don't have to share the personal data. Instead, I'm just sharing the zero knowledge proof about the statement that I want to prove. I hope this provides some clarity.
I hope so too. I hope that provides any clarity for Jim. If you want to come up, Jim, you're more than welcome. If anyone would wish to come up at this point and speak to any of our panelists, you're more than welcome to request to speak. We'll gladly have you. Hoss, you have your hand up, please.
Yeah, and then I think he had a rebuttal that validators make up the rules. Not they don't. They it's all voted on by governance. So and people that like say, oh well, validators they have more vote. Well, if people don't vote, then you know when you delegate to that specific validator, they vote on your behalf if you don't vote. And there could be, you could say what you want about that, But that's the way it works. Like validators can't just like make up rules. Like, oh, okay, we're just going to do this, this, and this. Like that's the beautiful thing about crypto and blockchain is like it has to be voted on by governance. So like as a token holder, you get to vote. Like awesome. Like if you want to look at Cosmos and see how really active it is, like just go check out a chain like Osmosis. Like I don't even know what proposal they're at by now, but it's absurd. And like same thing with other chains in Cosmos. Like there are so many proposals, 60, 70, 80, 300 of them, 400 of them, whatever Osmosis is at by now. But it's all voted on, like say you had a really good idea. It's called Commonwealth. Most people, it's just kind of like the unwritten rule is you go to Commonwealth with your idea, like, hey, we should do this, this, and this. You put it on there. It's like a pre-discussion. Then people give you their feedback and things of that nature, and then you go and put something on chain, and then everyone votes on it. Like I vote on it, you vote on it, as long as you hold that particular asset. So the validators, I mean, all like Star just said, all they're doing is just validating the transactions to make sure nothing's going awry. And a lot of the chains in Cosmos, like I don't even know how many the hub is at, but like over 100 or so validators. So they're just validating the transactions to make sure everything's easy peasy. But other than that, they can't just like do whatever they want. So that's the whole premise of like a proof of stake blockchain.
I would even add like one tiny note, by the way. Like if you were to go down to really technicalities, you technically don't delegate the tokens to a validator. You just delegate in voting shares. So it's like another subdivision. Like this is like, I mean, AStar probably is going to correct me if I'm wrong, but technically, really technically, you're not even delegating tokens. It's shares of voting. Like so, I see that I was right.
My apologies, guys. I may have accidentally disconnected there.
It looks like everybody's saying yes. So Galactica. Sorry, that was a little tiny comment. I'm sorry. So back to you.
No, of course. Okay, guys. Well, I think.
I don't think I can. Can anybody else hear Galactica? Is it just me?
So I can hear both of you.
So you can hear me, Frederick. Hoss, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so it's Sergey. Okay, in that case, we need to get Sergey to reconnect if we can.
Hey, citizens, if you'll probably be fine if you back out and come back in, because I don't think you can hear Galactica. I can hear everyone. So just if you wanted to do that.
I'm not entirely sure he can actually hear anyone at this point. So I'll see if I can poke him in one of our private channels. In any case, I think we've just actually got a new speaker. So while I'm trying to get the citizen sorted out, maybe Arnold. Hi, man. Welcome to the stage.
Welcome to the stage. Thank you. Greetings from Southern California over here, and just wanted to say I was looking at that comment as well about validators and saying, and I remember what Frederick was talking about in one of his YouTubes that he made. One of the videos was pretty cool because I guess we talked about guardians. I heard guardians being brought up, ones that would issue or go ahead and take care of the KYC, and then a zero knowledge KYC would be issued a certificate, and that certificate now would go on chain, allow you to interact with different dApps. Those dApps would be able to only see certain types of information, like are you over 18, what have you paid back loans, provide liquidity, whatever your kind of history, while maintaining your privacy, autonomy. In that way, you can now, the guardians are issuers of the KYC. Your certificate, your ZK KYC is on chain from what I understand. And then now you could go navigate around, Web3, DeFi, and all of that. And there's no way, I remember Frederick, I think, discussed this in a little more detail, was about how the issuers of the KYC, or the ones that make that certificate, have no way of interacting or colluding with any of the dApps. So there's no way for your identity to be compromised or to be, known or opened or none of that private information. So I think maybe some people think like, hey, you're doing a KYC. Is there any way for that to be out on chain? Is there any way for that to be out and be compromised? And so I believe there's a fail-safe proof that you're not able to go ahead and have those issuers or guardians to work with or get your identity compromised in any way. Frederick is the expert on that.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing this up. I think this is a good point to add. And basically, how this works, I hope I can explain it in simple terms. As you, as a user who wants to get a zero knowledge KYC, you provide a commitment hash. So this commitment hash you can think of as a hash of your address in a more there are a couple more steps than just the hash of the address, but the KYC provider only sees your personal data in this commitment hash, but he doesn't know what address belongs to this commitment hash. So when you use this zero knowledge KYC later, you prove that your address belongs to this commitment hash, but this is done inside the zero knowledge proof. And the kind of magic of the zero knowledge is that you can prove the statement without actually showing all the computation steps that led to it. You can just get the proof as output, which can be verified on chain to check that. And by putting this link between personal data and the blockchain address in this commitment hash, the provider who has the personal data cannot link it to any on-chain activity. But what I also would like to mention is you mentioned that there's no way to get the link, and this is actually not true because there are a couple cases where, for example, a user wants to disclose the identity and then put a public proof about, the name on chain. And also there's unfortunately the possibility that someone by accident discloses more than they initially wanted.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation. Now even sharpened my understanding even better.
Thanks for the question, Arnold. It's appreciated. There's an awful lot of somewhat new concepts that need to be thought about when we're discussing Galactica. To be honest, it's one of these things where this is why one of the reasons why we do these spaces is for education, because there's so much to actually take on board. It's not just your like a run of the mill normal L1. So yes, as far as like your ZK KYC. It is a possibility on Galactica Network. It is decentralized. It is private. However, you basically have full control of your data. That's the main point. Through ZK zero knowledge cryptography, you have the ability to control what data you release to everyone else. Essentially, the ZK certificates that we use in this use case, there you can selectively disclose any of the metadata on them. So if you want to, as Frederick says, if you want to disclose your name on blockchain, you can. It's a self-sovereign choice to do it, and there will be some fail-safes against you doing it accidentally, as much as we can from our side. But your data is your own, and it is private on your whim, or it is not on your whim. So yeah, that's privacy for you. It's your choice. And we value it greatly, so we want to give you every option we can. Right. I think we're actually we're past the top of the hour right now. So what I would like to do, I think what I'll do is I'll just ask firstly, if anyone else would like to jump up to speak, you're more than welcome. So please, if you want to come up to speak, just ask any questions or just interrogate us a little bit. You're more than welcome. We have a wonderful host. We have a wonderful co-host, Cosmos Host. We have our technical lead, Frederick, AStar.Gala. And we also have Sergey, Citizen Cosmos, who is an absolute legend in the Cosmos community with his own podcast. And you should definitely check out his profile, check out his website, everything. because he's got some really good content out. And we were on there last week, so that's probably the best one, you know. I'd just like to ask if you could also jump down to the comments of this section of this space, give us a like, give us a retweet. We are actually kind of coming up to the to what I would think is the winding down of the space, but it really helps us get the replays of the recording out to more people. Again, we're just trying to educate people both in general on blockchain and on our protocol, which is very technically complex. So if you could give us a like and a retweet, that would really help. Okay, guys, so if we don't have any more requests to speak, I would just like to offer everyone on the panel a chance for a final thought before we start wrapping up this space officially. I don't know if perhaps we start with Frederick. Do you want to start with any final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's there. I think it's amazing that we now have, I think if I look correctly, we were over 1,000 people at some point. So I think it's quite nice how the community is growing. And on the other hand, I just wanted to say, if you have any questions to us, I would be really grateful if you raise them. Especially on Discord, you can join, ask questions. I'm also looking there. And I, as a developer, I'm really grateful for all inputs and questions I get from the outside, because most of the day I'm hiding behind my laptop and programming. But to actually know what is the right thing to program, such feedback from the community would be really great.
Absolutely, guys. You can also drop any questions you have in the comments for this space. It's absolutely fine. So we actually do have another speaker who's just jumped up. So before we move on to the rest of the panel, landslide.net, please. Hi, how are you doing?
Hey guys, I'm a big fan of on-chain reputation, what you guys have been proposing. We're bringing the Cosmos SDK to Avalanche. Just wanted to stop in and say hello through IBC. And I don't think there's any on-chain reputation management in the Avalanche space, so we'd love to see that expand.
It sounds like we need to have a conversation, Landslide. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to have that conversation. I mean, I think reputation on chain is important enough to just about every ecosystem that, if we can export our reputation framework to as many places as possible, I think that's a massive value add. I really do. Landslide, I don't know if you, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to shill whatever you need to shill if you wish to. You seem like a nice guy. So
no, I don't need to shill. I'm very curious though about how you guys are learning from the long trail of dead in the reputation Web3 space.
We're learning greatly is what we're doing. There are several protocols that I believe you're probably referring to. We've taken note of the history of reputation on chain, and that's why we're trying to. We've kind of waited until we have like this renaissance of zero knowledge cryptography, of like just this maturing of all this technology, to the point where we can come up with a tech stack that actually makes sense. Because we believe most of the previous incarnations of reputation on chain have kind of had just incomplete tech stacks, as well. Say. They've just been missing one or another pieces of the puzzle. So it's something that I think we can't guarantee anything. There's no guarantees in life, but we've come up with a holistic tech stack that kind of enables this without any real trade-offs besides the ones that we've already previously discussed. That's kind of mitigated by the fact that we have options. So we'd like to give people the choice. You can either become a citizen of the Cypher state, which would mean that you were KYC'd in this decentralized private manner through ZK, or you can just use the network as any other permissionless network and still utilize this reputation framework that we've built out to build out a persistent identity and carve out your kind of like yourself on chain without ever identifying yourself at all. We're trying to learn, and we hope we have.
Right on. There's so much that went through the civic sort of experience Have you looked into what the ZK proofs going on at Panther protocol?
I'm sorry.
But personally, no, I have not seen it. But thanks for mentioning it. I will check it out.
Landslide, actually, you sound like the kind of guy that I'd actually like to talk to a bit more. I'm just wondering if you'd like to. You're more than welcome to join us as a main speaker on one of our next spaces, if you wish.
Yeah, sure. We can go into the how the IBC Lite client is working on Avalanche. Like we the funding came through ICF. Everything's open source. We're basically forking Tendermint core without Tendermint and the Cosmos SDK without the Tendermint modules. So it's similar. It's like a Cosmos zone and a subnet at the same time. So what that means for Galactica is that you just take the existing software stack and you run an outpost through IBC.
You know what? I'm going to admit ignorance on the technical side too much, but Frederick, I'm sure you understood over all of those words.
Most of them, yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Well,
Go ahead, my bad. I was gonna say we had you before. I had you before on the show. Yeah, we should definitely maybe Tuesday at the same time if you're free.
Yeah, happy to help.
Fantastic, guys. I love it. I love it. So what we'll do then is we'll just continue on through our final remarks from our speakers. So I think we would go maybe Sergey. Do you have a final thought, my friend?
Can I be cheesy?
You can be as cheesy as you like, my friend.
So I'm gonna read a 2-minute text. I'm gonna try to read it quicker, and I'm sure some of you will know it. Some of you might not be familiar with it, but I'm gonna read it out, and then I make a point, 1-sentence point. From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest, but for us it's different. Consider again at the dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives, the aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, and every blockchain, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It's a text by Carl Sagan from A Pale Blue Dot, and my point is that whatever doctrines, whether they are private or not, whatever architectures, whether they're decentralized or not, whatever I don't know, contracts or whatever else that we are doing, blockchain isn't going to be in the sense different if we as a species don't look at bigger things. And I think that's my point, just to look at bigger things.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, Sergey. Always take a wide view and always take into account other people's opinions. Even if you don't agree, just listen. It's always good to listen and understand. Don't understand people, you don't know anything. Okay, I think Arnold, mate, would you like to have a final thought before we go to my co-host Austin?
No, I just think that we're at a really significant point in history. Unprecedented times. These are monumental shifts, and for us to really just be able to grasp, the opportunities that we have to maximize it, and to be able to build really a better society in the world, at least in some part. So I think we are privileged to be here, and I think we definitely need to grab the bull by the horns and go forward. And I think there's just an amazing adventure for us to have together. And I think there's going to be a lot of discoveries yet to be made, but I'm glad to be here with you all, and this is an incredible journey so far.
I couldn't agree more, Arnold. It's an amazing time to be alive and in tech and just living in general. Hoss, my friends, please, if you want to give your final thought before we start wrapping down.
No, I'll just keep it short and sweet. Just take pride in everyone that's showing up, doing the work during these times and tribulations, and learn from your past mistakes and just keep improving. And that's all we can do is keep trying. And I do believe in this space. I think most people that are in here probably do as well, and that's why you're here. So just be proud of that standpoint, and thanks for showing up, and have a good day.
Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled with the number of people who have turned up to this space. I really appreciate all our new listeners. So I could just like to lead us out by reminding everyone, please check the pinned tweet that we've got up there at the moment and join our Discord. From our Discord, you can get access to just about everything, including our new Cypher State program, Cypher State campaign, in which you can like kind of contribute to Galactica Network and be rewarded in return. At the top tier of the stuff that you can get rewarded is our Galactica Network citizenship, which is something that you would want to aspire to hold in one of the earlier waves that we can give it out. So yes, thank you very much, guys. If you want to just visit our website as well, galactica.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. It's also part of the Cypher State campaign, so it'll help you there. Don't forget to drop a like and a retweet on the space, please, before you leave. It actually helps us in the algorithm still, and it also helps us get the recordings out to more people and more replays. I'd just like to say once again, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. It's been an amazing space. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Into the Cypher State. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.